Hi, everyone. Welcome back. If you've ever felt frustrated because you can't seem to speak English naturally, even though you've studied for months or years, you are not alone. And trust me, you're not the problem. It's the way you've been training your brain. Have you ever had this happen to you? You're in a conversation with someone in English. Maybe it's a friend, a coworker, or even a stranger. And suddenly your brain just freezes. You know the words. You've studied the grammar. But when it's time to speak, nothing comes out. Or even worse, you try to translate the sentence from your native language to English. But by the time you figure it out, the conversation has already moved on. It's frustrating, right? Let me tell you something important. This is not because you don't know enough English. It's because your brain isn't trained to think in English automatically. That's the problem most language learners face. And it's exactly why so many people struggle to reach fluency. I had a student named Diego from Brazil who came to me feeling completely stuck. He told me, "I've been studying English for 2 years. I know the grammar. I've memorized so many words. But when I try to speak, I can't do it. My brain just shuts down." That's because Diego was stuck in learning mode. He had trained his brain to understand English, but not to produce it naturally. But here's the good news. You can train your brain to think and speak in English without hesitation. Just like you don't think about walking or driving, you just do it. You can reach that level with English, too. It's not about learning more grammar or memorizing more vocabulary. It's about rewiring your brain to process English automatically. And today, I'm going to show you exactly how to do that. I'm going to break down the techniques and strategies that professional language learners use to speak fluently, without overthinking or hesitation. We'll cover how to stop translating in your head, how to pick up native-like patterns, and how to make English feel as natural as your native language. By the end of this video, you'll have a clear, practical strategy to train your brain to think and speak in English automatically. And the best part? It's not complicated. You don't need to study harder. You just need to train smarter. So stay with me, because this could change the way you learn English forever. Let's get started. Why you're stuck translating instead of thinking in English. Let me tell you why most English learners struggle to speak fluently, and why it feels like your brain just freezes when it's time to talk. The problem isn't that you don't know enough English. The problem is that your brain is stuck in translation mode. When you speak your native language, your brain processes words automatically. You don't think about grammar. You don't carefully select every word. You just speak. But when you try to speak in English, your brain is trying to do two things at once. One, first, it processes the idea in your native language. Two, then it translates that idea into English. Three, finally, it tries to say the sentence out loud. That's why it feels slow, awkward, and unnatural. You're not just speaking, you're running a mental translation program at the same time. And guess what? That's too much work for your brain to handle during a fast-moving conversation. I had a student named Diego from Brazil who told me, "I understand English perfectly when I'm listening to a podcast or watching a movie. But when I try to speak, my mind goes blank." That's because Diego was stuck in learning mode. He had trained his brain to understand English, but not to produce it naturally. Let me give you an example. Imagine someone asks you in English, "What are you doing this weekend?" Here's what happens if you're stuck in translation mode. First, your brain processes the question in your native language. Then, it translates your response word by word in your head. Next, it tries to adjust the grammar to match the rules you've memorized. By the time you've figured it out, the conversation has already moved on. That's why you feel like you can't keep up. But here's the thing, native speakers don't speak like that. They don't build sentences from scratch every time they talk. They rely on patterns and phrases they've heard thousands of times. Think about how you speak in your native language. You don't carefully think about every word. You respond automatically because your brain has already built the pathways to recognize common patterns. You've heard them so many times that they feel automatic. Let me give you an example. When a native speaker hears, "How's it going?" they don't think about grammar or vocabulary. They respond automatically with something like, "I'm good. How about you?" That's because their brain has already stored that pattern through years of exposure. The key to fluency isn't knowing more words. It's training your brain to think in English patterns automatically. And that's exactly what we're going to work on. By the end of this video, you'll understand how to train your brain to stop translating and start responding naturally in English, just like a native speaker. This is not about memorization. It's about rewiring your brain to process English directly. And here's the best part. It's not as hard as you think. Once you understand how to train your brain to process English automatically, speaking will become so much easier. So stay with me, because in the next section, I'm going to show you exactly how to break out of translation mode and start thinking in English like a native speaker. The secret to training your brain to think in English. The key to fluency isn't memorizing more vocabulary or studying more grammar. It's about training your brain to think in English automatically. Right now, you're probably translating in your head, but that's slowing you down. Fluency happens when you stop translating and start responding naturally, and that comes from training your brain to work differently. Let me explain why this works. When a baby learns their first language, they don't memorize grammar rules or vocabulary lists. They don't sit down and study. They listen, copy, and repeat. They hear phrases like, "How are you?" and "What's that?" over and over again, and their brain starts to build patterns. That's why when you speak your native language, you don't think about the rules. You just speak. Your brain has already stored those patterns through repetition and exposure. But when you're learning English, most people focus on memorization, not patterns. You learn individual words, but you don't know how to put them together quickly in conversation. Let me give you an example. When a native speaker hears the question, "What's up?" they don't analyze it or think about the grammar. Their brain already knows the pattern, so they respond automatically with something like, "Not much, you," without even thinking about it. But when a learner hears it, their brain does this. First, it translates "what's up" into their native language. Then, it processes the meaning. Finally, it tries to create a grammatically correct response. By the time you've figured out what to say, the conversation has already moved on. That's the problem with translation-based thinking. It's too slow. So how do you fix this? You train your brain to think in patterns, not words. Instead of memorizing individual vocabulary, focus on learning useful, high-frequency phrases. When you train with phrases, your brain stores them as complete chunks, not separate words. That makes it easier to recall and respond quickly in conversation. Let me give you some examples of patterns you should learn. Instead of learning the word help, learn, "Can you help me?" That was really helpful. Instead of memorizing go, learn, "I'm gonna go now. Let's go. Where should we go?" For social situations, memorize common patterns like, "What's up? How's it going? I'll catch you later." When you learn these patterns, you don't need to think about grammar. The phrases will just come out naturally. Let me give you an example of how powerful this is. I had a student named Diego from Brazil. He knew a lot of English vocabulary, But when it came time to speak, he would freeze. He was overthinking the grammar and translating everything in his head. So I gave him a list of 20 useful conversation patterns and told him to repeat them every day. After 2 weeks, he told me, "It's like my brain just knows what to say now." Why? Because he had trained his brain to process the patterns automatically, just like a native speaker. Here's a quick exercise you can try right now to build this skill. 1. Choose 5 phrases you hear in English conversations, TV shows, YouTube, or podcasts. 2. Write them down and repeat them 10 times. 3. The next time you have a conversation, try using one of those phrases naturally. This works because your brain loves patterns. When you hear and repeat the same phrases enough times, your brain recognizes them as familiar. And that's when you stop translating and start speaking automatically. Think about how you remember the lyrics to your favorite song. You don't have to think about the next line. You just know it because you've heard it so many times. That's exactly how language works. When you train your brain with patterns, speaking becomes automatic. And here's the best part. It happens faster than you think. Once you start focusing on patterns instead of grammar, you'll notice that conversations feel easier, you'll respond faster, and your confidence will grow naturally. In the next section, I'm going to show you a powerful technique that will help you internalize these patterns even faster. It's called shadowing, and it's a game changer for fluency. So stick with me. We're about to take this to the next level. The pattern recognition method. If you want to speak English fluently and automatically, you need to stop thinking about individual words and start thinking in patterns. That's how native speakers do it. They aren't translating in their heads or analyzing grammar rules when they speak. Their brain is recognizing patterns and responding automatically. And that's exactly what you're going to learn to do. Let me explain why this works. When you hear a phrase like, "what you doin'," your brain might try to break it down word by word. What? Question word. Are? Auxiliary verb. You? Subject pronoun. Doing? Present continuous verb. But native speakers don't think like this. When they hear, "what you doin'," their brain processes it as a single unit, a familiar pattern, not 4 separate words. That's why they can respond quickly and naturally. Their brain isn't wasting time translating. It's relying on muscle memory built from hearing and using those patterns over and over again. Now let's take a closer look at how patterns work. When native speakers talk, they often reduce or blend words together. This is called connected speech, and it's one of the biggest reasons why spoken English sounds different from written English. Here are some common examples of connected speech. Going to, gonna. Example, I'm going to the store. I'm gonna the store. Did you, do. Example, did you see that? Do you see that? What are you? Whatcha. Example, what are you doing? What you doing? When you hear a native speaker say, "what you doing?" they aren't thinking about grammar rules. Their brain recognizes the pattern, and they respond automatically. That's exactly what you need to train your brain to do. How to build pattern recognition. To train your brain to think in patterns, you need to build familiarity with these common patterns. And the best way to do that is through repetition and shadowing. Step 1. Hear it. Find a short phrase or sentence, something native speakers say all the time. Example, what's up? Listen to it several times until you hear the natural rhythm and tone. Step 2. Repeat it now. Say the phrase out loud. Exactly how you heard it. Match the speed, intonation, and tone. Example, what's up? What's up? Step 3. Speed it up. Repeat the phrase faster. Try to match the natural pace of native speakers. Example, what's up? What's up? Step 4. Build on it. Now, take that pattern and create variations. What's up with you? What's up, man? What's up today? The goal is to train your brain to recognize the pattern, so when you hear it, you don't stop to think. You respond automatically. Let's try it right now. I'm going to say a phrase slowly, and then I want you to repeat it after me, faster and faster each time. Going to, gonna. Did you eat yet? Do you eat yet? What are you doing? What you doing? Let's take it up a level. I'm going to grab some coffee. I'm gonna grab some coffee. Did you eat breakfast? Did you eat breakfast? What are you doing tonight? What you doing tonight? Did you feel how much easier it became after a few tries? That's your brain-building muscle memory, recognizing the pattern and responding naturally. This is how native speakers speak without thinking, because their brain has already stored these patterns through repetition. That's what you need to aim for. Let me give you an example of how powerful this is. I had a student named Diego from Brazil. He could understand English pretty well, but when it came time to speak, he always froze. He was too focused on translating every word in his head, and by the time he figured out what to say, the conversation had already moved on. So I gave him a list of 20 common patterns. What's up? How's it going? I'll catch you later. Let's grab some coffee. I told him to shadow these phrases every day for 2 weeks. After a week, he told me, "It's weird. I don't even have to think about what to say anymore. The words just come out." That's the power of pattern recognition. When you hear the same phrases over and over, your brain stores them as familiar responses. That's why native speakers sound natural. They aren't creating sentences from scratch. They're responding with patterns they've heard thousands of times. And the best part? This happens faster than you think. After just a few days of practicing patterns, you'll notice that conversations feel easier, and you'll start responding more quickly, without hesitation. Here's a challenge for you. Find 5 common patterns today, from a TV show, podcast, or conversation. Write them down and repeat them 10 times. The next time you have a conversation, try using at least one of those patterns naturally. Your brain will adjust faster than you expect. That's the power of pattern recognition. And once you master it, speaking English will feel easy and automatic. One of the biggest mistakes English learners make is trying to translate every single word in their head before speaking. That's why conversations feel slow and stressful, because your brain is working overtime, switching between 2 languages and trying to piece together the grammar. But here's the truth. Native speakers aren't translating. They're thinking in patterns and responding automatically. And that's exactly what you need to train your brain to do. Let me give you an example of why translating doesn't work. Imagine someone says to you, "Hey, wanna grab a coffee?" If you try to translate it word by word, your brain will go through this process. Wanna, want to grab. Take hold of a coffee, a cup of coffee. But native speakers don't process conversations like that. They hear the phrase, "wanna grab a coffee," as a single unit, not 3 separate words. They understand the meaning from context and tone, not from translating word by word. Now, let's try this exercise right now. Say this phrase out loud. Do you want to grab a coffee? Now say it faster. Do you want to grab a coffee? Now shorten it even more. Want to grab a coffee? Notice how it feels more natural and easier to say when you stop thinking about the individual words and focus on the pattern. That's because your brain processes familiar patterns faster than isolated words. This is why translating slows you down, because your brain isn't wired to switch between languages quickly. It's like trying to run a race while carrying a heavy backpack. To speak fluently, you need to drop the habit of translating and start trusting your brain's ability to process patterns naturally. Here's how to stop translating and start thinking in English. 1. Focus on meaning, not individual words. Stop worrying about understanding every single word in a sentence. Your brain doesn't need 100% accuracy to understand meaning. It just needs context. Example: if someone says, "I'm feeling under the weather today," you don't need to know the exact meaning of under the weather to understand that they're not feeling well. Your brain can pick up the message from tone and context. So instead of thinking, "What does under the weather mean?" train yourself to think, "They probably feel sick." 2. Train your brain to guess from context. Native speakers rely on context and tone more than words. If someone says, "Hey, you coming?" you don't need to analyze the grammar to know they're inviting you to join them. Example: did you catch that? They're asking if you understood. Are you up for it? They're asking if you want to do something. I'll grab it. They're offering to pick something up. Most conversations aren't about perfect grammar. They're about exchanging meaning quickly and naturally. 3. Think in phrases, not words. Instead of learning single words, learn entire phrases. That way, your brain processes language in chunks, which speeds up response time. Example: instead of learning get, learn get ready, get better, get up. Instead of learning go, learn go out, go on, go for it. Instead of learning come, learn come over, come in, come through. Native speakers speak in patterns, not individual words. That's why they respond faster, because they've practiced using patterns over and over. 4th, stop overthinking and trust your brain. You don't need to translate to understand. Your brain is already good at picking up patterns. Trust that your brain knows more than you think it does. Example: if someone says, "What are you up to?" you don't need to analyze the question. If someone says, "Let's hang out later," you don't need to translate it. If someone says, "I'll catch you later," you know they mean, "I'll see you later." Your brain will pick up the meaning from tone, context, and patterns, but only if you stop interrupting it with translation. 5. Let go of perfection. The reason you feel the need to translate is because you're trying to speak perfectly. But perfection is the enemy of fluency. Native speakers make mistakes all the time, and they don't care. Their goal is communication, not accuracy. Example: if you say, "I go to the store yesterday," they'll still understand you. If you say, "I'm go tomorrow," they'll still understand you. Fluency is about communication, not accuracy. When you stop trying to be perfect, you'll speak more naturally. Challenge. Now let's put this into practice. I'm going to say a phrase, and I want you to respond without thinking. Just let your brain react naturally. "Hey, how's it going? Want to grab a coffee? What are you up to tonight?" Did you respond immediately, or did you stop to translate? Now let's speed it up. "Hey, how's it going?" "Good, how about you? Want to grab a coffee?" "Yeah, sure. What are you up to tonight?" "Not much, you?" That's how native speakers communicate. Fast, natural, and without hesitation. The key to this is practice. The more you expose your brain to real English conversations, the faster it will process patterns. Stop translating, trust your brain, and focus on patterns. And soon you'll be responding automatically without even thinking. In the next chapter, we're going to take this one step further. I'm going to teach you how to train your brain to build patterns through shadowing and listening exercises. This is where fluency really starts to take off. So stick with me. You're almost there. One of the fastest and most powerful ways to train your brain to think and speak in English automatically is through shadowing. Shadowing is a technique where you listen to native speech and repeat exactly what you hear in real time, without pausing. This forces your brain to process language quickly, improves your pronunciation, and helps you internalize the natural flow of English. It's like muscle memory for your brain. The more you shadow, the faster and more natural your speech becomes. Let me explain why shadowing works so well. When you speak your native language, you're not consciously thinking about grammar or individual words. You're relying on muscle memory and patterns. Shadowing builds that same kind of muscle memory for English. By copying native speakers, you're training your brain to recognize sounds, rhythm, and intonation, and to reproduce them automatically. Let me give you a real life example. I had a student named Emma who had studied English for over 5 years, but she still struggled to speak fluently. She knew the grammar and vocabulary, but when she tried to have a conversation, her mind would freeze. That's because her brain wasn't trained to respond automatically in English. It was still stuck in translation mode. I gave Emma a shadowing challenge. I told her to find a YouTube video of native speakers talking naturally. She had to listen to 10 seconds of dialogue, pause, and repeat exactly what she heard, matching the tone and rhythm. Then she had to try shadowing in real time, speaking at the same time as the speaker, without pausing. After just 1 week of consistent practice, Emma's speech became faster and more natural. She wasn't thinking about grammar anymore. The words were coming out automatically. That's the power of shadowing. Here's how to start shadowing. Step by step, 1. Find the right source. Start with something that matches your current level. Not too hard, but not too easy. Example, a YouTube interview, a scene from a TV show, a podcast with clear speech. If you're a beginner, start with slower conversations. If you're more advanced, challenge yourself with faster content. 2. Start by listening. Listen carefully to the dialogue without speaking. Pay attention to how the speaker connects words, the tone, and the natural flow of speech. Example, if the speaker says, "I'm gonna go to the store," you're listening for the connected speech, "I'm gonna," instead of, "I am going to." 3. Repeat. Exactly what you hear. Now pause the video or audio and repeat exactly what you heard. Try to match the tone, the speed, and the pronunciation. If the speaker says gonna instead of going to, copy them. If they blend the words together, do the same. Example, I'm gonna go to the store. Repeat, I'm gonna go to the store. 4. Shadow in real time. Once you've practiced repeating after the speaker, try to shadow them in real time. Play the video and speak at the same time as the speaker. Don't pause. Keep going, even if you miss a word. The goal isn't to be perfect. It's to train your brain to keep up. Example, speaker, I'm gonna grab some coffee. You, I'm gonna grab some coffee. 5. Record yourself and compare. Record yourself shadowing the speaker, then listen to both your version and the original. Are you matching the speed and tone? Are you blending the words together naturally? Are you stressing the right parts of the sentence? If you sound awkward or robotic, that's okay. Keep practicing. Fluency isn't about perfection. It's about consistency. 6. Gradually increase the difficulty. Start with simple dialogues, but once you get comfortable, increase the difficulty. Move from slower speech to natural, fast conversations. Challenge yourself with slang, contractions, and informal speech. Try shadowing interviews, comedy sketches, or news reports. Example, start with, I'm gonna go to the store, then, hey, what you doing later? Wanna hang out? Finally, all right, so what's the deal with the meeting tomorrow? The faster and more complex the speech, the more powerful the shadowing effect becomes. Let's try it right now. We're going to do a shadowing exercise together. I'll say a phrase slowly, then faster, and you need to repeat it in real time. Don't worry about being perfect. Just try to keep up. First phrase, I'm gonna go to the store. Repeat with me. I'm gonna go to the store. Now faster. I'm gonna go to the store. Second phrase, what are you doing? Repeat with me. What you doing? Now faster. What you doing? Third phrase, did you eat yet? Repeat with me. Do you eat yet? Now faster. Do you eat yet? See how it works. The more you shadow, the more automatic your speech becomes. At first, it's going to feel difficult. You'll stumble over words, miss sounds, and get frustrated. That's normal, and it's actually part of the process. Your brain is rewiring itself, and the more you push through the discomfort, the easier it gets. Native speakers have spent their entire lives hearing and using English. That's why it feels natural to them. But with shadowing, you're speeding up that process. You're giving your brain the input it needs to build automatic speech patterns. And that's how you become fluent. The key to shadowing is consistency. If you practice for 10 minutes a day, every day, you'll notice a massive improvement in your fluency within a few weeks. So here's your challenge. Find a 30-second clip of native speech today. Listen to it, repeat it, and shadow it in real time. Record yourself and adjust. Do this every day for 1 week. By the end of the week, you'll feel more confident, faster, and more natural when you speak. In the next chapter, we're going to take this even further. I'll show you how to use common patterns and expressions to respond automatically in conversations. This is where fluency really starts to click. So stay with me. If you've ever learned a new word or phrase and then completely forgotten it a few days later, you're not alone. This happens because your brain treats new information like temporary data, unless you train it to keep that information permanently. The key to locking new phrases and patterns into your brain is spaced repetition, reviewing them at specific intervals until your brain decides that they're important enough to store in long-term memory. Let me explain why this works. Your brain is designed to forget information it thinks is irrelevant. That's why you remember your friend's birthday or your phone number, but you forget the new word you learned yesterday. Your brain decides what to keep based on how often it encounters that information. If you only see or hear a word once, your brain treats it as unimportant and deletes it. But if you review it regularly, your brain gets the message. This is important. Keep it. That's where spaced repetition comes in. Spaced repetition is a scientifically proven method where you review information at gradually increasing intervals. Instead of cramming 20 new words in one day and forgetting most of them by next week, you space out the review sessions so your brain has time to absorb and store the information properly. Let me give you an example. I had a student named Emma who was struggling with vocabulary retention. She would study 50 new words a week, and by the end of the week, she could barely remember any of them. She told me, "I don't understand. I'm putting in the time, but it's not sticking." So, I had Emma switch to a spaced repetition system. On day 1, she learned 5 new words and used them in sentences. On day 2, she reviewed those 5 words and added 5 more. On day 3, she reviewed all 10 words and added 5 more. On day 7, she reviewed all the words from that week. After 2 weeks, she reviewed them again. After a month, Emma told me something amazing. She wasn't just remembering the words, she was using them naturally in conversations. That's the power of spaced repetition. Here's how to set up a spaced repetition schedule. Step 1. Learn 5 new phrases a day. Don't try to learn too much at once. 5 new phrases is enough to stay focused and retain them. Write them down. And create sentences using them. Example, if you learn take off, write down, "I'm going to take off now." Step 2. Review after 24 hours. The next day, go over the 5 phrases again. Try to use them in conversation or write new sentences. Example, if you learned take off, say, My flight takes off at 3 p.m. Step 3. Review. After 3 days. After 3 days, go back and test yourself on those phrases. If you forget one, that's okay. That's how your brain strengthens the connection. Step 4. Review after a week. Now review all the phrases you've learned that week. This is when your brain starts locking the information into long-term memory. Step 5. Review after 2 weeks. Finally, review the same phrases after 2 weeks. If you can remember them after 2 weeks, they're likely stored permanently. Why this works. 1. Your brain strengthens neural connections every time you recall the information. 2. The gaps between review sessions give your brain time to process and store the information. 3. If you struggle to remember a word after 2 weeks, you know it's a weak spot. So you can focus more on that word. Let's try it right now. Let me give you 3 new phrases. I want you to say them out loud and create a sentence for each one. Wrap up. Example, let's wrap up the meeting. Catch up. Example, let's catch up this weekend. Look after. Example, can you look after my dog while I'm away? Now, here's your challenge. 1. Write these phrases down. 2. Review them tomorrow. 3. Review them again in 3 days. 4. At the end of the week, use them in conversation. The goal isn't just to remember the words. The goal is to train your brain to pull them up automatically when you need them. That's what fluency is. Automatic recall. Think about how you learned your first language. You didn't memorize words from a list. You heard them, repeated them, and used them in context until they became natural. That's exactly what you're training your brain to do now. At first, this process will feel slow, but stick with it. After a few weeks, you'll start noticing that you can respond more quickly and naturally in conversations. That's because your brain is learning to pull up patterns, not individual words. So here's your action plan. Learn 5 new phrases today. Review them tomorrow. Review them again in 3 days. Review them after a week, then again after 2 weeks. If you follow this system for 1 month, you'll see a huge difference in how quickly and naturally you can speak. Most English learners think they need to speak perfectly to sound fluent, but that's a huge mistake. Fluency isn't about perfection, it's about communication. If you focus too much on avoiding mistakes, you'll hesitate, second-guess yourself, and lose confidence. The truth is, even native speakers make mistakes all the time. The difference is, they don't stop when they make a mistake. They keep going. That's exactly what you need to train yourself to do. Let me give you an example. I had a student named Emma from Germany. She was terrified of speaking English because she thought that if she made a mistake, people would judge her. So when she spoke, she would hesitate and pause a lot, trying to get the sentence perfect in her head before saying it out loud. The problem was, by the time she figured out what to say, the conversation had already moved on. So I told Emma to stop trying to be perfect and focus on keeping the conversation going. I taught her a few simple recovery phrases, and within weeks, her fluency skyrocketed. Why? Because she stopped getting stuck, and she started trusting herself to figure it out as she spoke. Here's what I taught Emma, and what you should start using today. 1. Don't apologize for every mistake. Mistakes are normal. If you say something wrong, just keep going. Native speakers don't care about mistakes. They care about understanding you. Example, if you say, I go store yesterday, instead of stopping and panicking, just correct yourself naturally. I mean, I went to the store yesterday. 2. Use simple recovery phrases. If you don't understand what someone said, or you miss part of the conversation, don't panic. Just ask for clarification. Sorry, can you say that again? I didn't catch that. Could you repeat it? What was that last part? Did you say? These phrases keep the conversation flowing, and they show confidence. 3. Rephrase. If you can't find the right word, if you can't remember a word, explain it another way. Example. You forget the word for scissors? You could say, it's that thing you use to cut paper. Or you forget the word backpack. You could say, it's that bag you carry on your back. This is exactly what native speakers do when they forget words. They describe it, and the other person understands. 4. Keep speaking, even when it feels messy. Let's say you're trying to explain your weekend, and you say, I, I went to the place with the animals. Oh, the zoo. That's totally fine. That's how real conversations work. Native speakers hesitate and search for words all the time, but they don't stop. They keep going. That's the difference between a fluent speaker and a hesitant one. 5. Use fillers to keep the flow. When you're thinking of what to say next, don't just go silent. Use fillers to give yourself time to think. Well, let me think about that for a second. That's interesting. Good question. These phrases make you sound natural, and they give you a moment to gather your thoughts without losing the flow of the conversation. 6. Don't correct every mistake. Keep going. When you speak your native language, do you speak perfectly? No. You make mistakes all the time, but you don't stop and fix every single one because you're focused on the conversation. That's exactly how you need to approach English. If you say, I don't know where is it, just keep going. If you say he don't like it, just keep going. Your brain will naturally start correcting itself over time. Let me give you a quick example. Imagine you're talking to a native speaker and they say, hey, did you see that new movie? And you say, yes, it was, how to say, exciting. That's completely fine. You kept the conversation going, and you communicated the message. That's what fluency is. It's about communication, not perfection. Let's try it. Right now, I'm going to ask you a few questions, and I want you to answer them out loud. If you don't know a word, describe it or use a filler. Just keep talking. Don't stop. What's your favorite food? Where would you like to travel next? What's one thing you learned this week? Don't overthink it. Just respond. If you say something wrong, no problem. Just keep going. Here's your challenge. 1. Start a 5-minute conversation with yourself today. 2. If you get stuck, use a filler phrase like, well, or let me think about that. 3. If you forget a word, describe it. 4. Don't stop. Just keep going. The goal is not perfection. The goal is to build confidence. The more you practice speaking through mistakes, the more natural it will feel. Fluency isn't about getting it right every time. It's about trusting yourself to figure it out as you go. If you follow this strategy consistently, you'll notice a huge difference in how comfortable and confident you feel when you speak. Fluency is about flow, not perfection. So stop worrying about getting it right and start focusing on expressing yourself. The more you speak, the faster your brain will adjust, and the more fluent you'll become. In the next chapter, I'll show you how to expand your vocabulary naturally so you can keep the conversation going even longer. So stick with me. You're getting closer to fluency every day. Most people think that to improve their English, they need to spend hours studying grammar and memorizing vocabulary. But that's not true. Fluency isn't about studying more. It's about speaking more. If you want to think and speak in English automatically, you need to build a daily speaking habit, even if it's just for a few minutes each day. Let me tell you about my student, Diego. He was stuck at an intermediate level for years. He knew a lot of English, but he couldn't speak fluently because he wasn't practicing speaking enough. Diego would study grammar for hours, listen to podcasts, and watch English movies. But when it came time to have a conversation, his brain froze. So I gave him a simple challenge. Speak for just 5 minutes a day, every single day. Within 2 weeks, he started noticing a huge improvement. Why? Because daily speaking practice trains your brain to produce language automatically. You don't need to practice for hours. You just need to practice consistently. Step 1. Start your day with a morning speaking session, 5 minutes. Begin your day by describing your day out loud, even if no one is listening. The goal here is to get your brain working in English first thing in the morning. Example: I'm getting ready for work. I had eggs and toast for breakfast. The weather looks nice today. Maybe I'll go for a walk later. It doesn't have to be complicated. Just speak naturally. The goal isn't to be perfect. The goal is to get your brain used to producing English without hesitation. Here's why this works. You're not focused on grammar. You're focused on communication. Speaking first thing in the morning activates the language centers of your brain, making it easier to switch into English mode throughout the day. Your brain starts forming automatic patterns, so you'll stop translating and start thinking in English. Step 2. Midday shadowing practice. 10 minutes. Shadowing is one of the fastest ways to improve your pronunciation and fluency. Find a short video or podcast, about 30 seconds to 1 minute long, and repeat exactly what you hear at the same speed and tone. Example: you could use a scene from a TV show like Friends or The Office. Listen to a character's line and repeat it immediately after them. If the speaker says, "Hey, what are you doing tonight?" you immediately repeat, "Hey, what are you doing tonight?" Try to match the speed, tone, and rhythm as closely as possible. Don't worry if you don't get it right the first time. Keep practicing. The goal is to train your brain to copy natural speech patterns. Here's why shadowing works. It helps you get used to the natural flow of English. It builds muscle memory for pronunciation and intonation. It forces your brain to process English in real time, without translating. Pro tip: start with slower content if you struggle to keep up. Gradually work your way up to faster speech. Step 3. Evening reflection and review, 5 minutes. At the end of the day, spend a few minutes talking about your day in English. This is your chance to reflect on what you did and use new vocabulary you've learned. Example: today was a busy day. I went to the store and picked up some groceries. I ran into my friend Mark. We had coffee and talked about work. It was nice to catch up. If you don't know how to say something, describe it instead. I couldn't find the, thing you use to open a can. You know what I mean? This builds your ability to think around vocabulary gaps, which is exactly what native speakers do when they forget a word. Here's why this step works. Reflection helps you lock in new vocabulary and phrases. You're training your brain to organize thoughts in English. Describing events from your day makes language more meaningful, and meaningful language sticks better. Step 4. Track your progress. Optional. If you want to keep improving, track your progress. Record yourself once a week speaking for 1 to 2 minutes. Compare your recordings after a month. You'll notice huge improvements in flow, pronunciation, and confidence. Example: record yourself saying, "Today was a good day. I got up early, went for a walk, and worked on my English speaking. I feel like I'm getting better." After 2 weeks, listen to the recording again. You'll notice that you sound more natural and confident. Step 5. Mix it up. Keep it fun. You don't want to get bored, so keep your daily practice interesting. Talk about different topics: food, travel, work, hobbies. Try speaking with different accents: American, British, Australian. Practice with a language partner or even an AI chatbot if you can't find a partner. Example: Monday, talk about what you did over the weekend. Tuesday, describe your favorite meal. Wednesday, talk about your work or school day. Thursday, try to tell a story from memory. Friday, talk about your future plans. Consistency beats intensity every time. Speaking for 5 to 10 minutes a day is more effective than cramming for 2 hours once a week. Let me give you an example of why this works. I had another student named Rachel. She struggled with speaking for years because she was too focused on learning, not using. I told her to commit to 10 minutes of speaking every day, no matter what. Rachel started with simple sentences. I'm cooking dinner. It smells really good. I need to buy more vegetables tomorrow. Within a month, her confidence improved dramatically. She wasn't just learning English, she was living it. That's the difference between knowing English and speaking English. Here's your challenge. 1. Start tomorrow morning. Spend 5 minutes talking to yourself about your day. 2. Midday. Shadow a 30-second video or podcast clip. Try to match the tone and speed. 3. In the evening, reflect on your day and talk about it in English. Even if it's messy, keep doing this every day for the next 30 days, and I promise, you'll see massive improvement. Speaking will feel easier, and you'll stop second-guessing yourself. Consistency is the key. 5 minutes a day might not seem like much, but over time, it compounds into massive progress. You've got this.